Season 1 of The Last of Us is a great adaptation of the very first video game. And while not everything about this show was great, for the most part, I had an enjoyable and entertaining time with this one. For the record, I will be spoiling this season, so spoiler warning. You know, to be honest, I was nervous about this show because most video game adaptations are downright horrible, but after seeing the first episode, I have to say I was quite impressed. This show, for the most part, is a direct comparison to the video game. I have to say I was quite happy that they didn't change the overall narrative to this one. And speaking of which, in episode 1, when Joel loses Sarah, then he ends up becoming a hardened survivor. Fast forward 20 years later, and Marlene tells Joel he has to take a teenager named Ellie across a post-apocalyptic United States. There is so much I have liked about this show, from the acting to the story, to the music, to even the character development, especially between Joel and Ellie. It was done so well. At first they didn't like each other, but near the end of this season they became father and daughter, and the love they had was so strong, it was so powerful. Certainly HBO did a good job crafting this show, and quite frankly, this is what happens when you stay true to the source material. The chemistry between Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey was amazing, simply being because it's the crux of the show, you know, the journey between Joel and Ellie. And I like how they also brought in some voice actors from the video games. Merle Dandridge, she had voiced Marlene in the video games, and I like the fact she came back to do this role. And I said, you know, that's pretty cool. And obviously Ashley Johnson, she had voiced Ellie in the games, and she plays Ellie's mother in the season 1 finale, and I thought that was awesome as well. One thing I will say is that I wish episode 3 wasn't an episode dedicated to Bill and Frank. Yeah, I get it, it's their romance. But this is like the 3rd episode, and we as the audience barely knew this version of Joel and Ellie. I mean, it's a great episode, but I kind of feel like it wasted time a little bit. And I also would say episode 7 with Ellie and Riley, that flashback, I found that completely unnecessary. I already knew what they was doing with that. The only reason they put it in there is because it was DLC content of the first video game. Still though, this show, it gets a lot of things right, especially the season 1 finale, how Joel just straight up fights to get Ellie back. You know, he doesn't want to lose another daughter. And you know, it's real powerful stuff. For the most part though, a lot of video game franchises should do the TV series format. The reason being you can develop the characters a lot more than you ever could with a 2.5 hour movie. At the end of the day though, this was an amazing video game adaptation. And while not everything about it was perfect, it still was more than entertaining to keep my interest. I'm giving this first season an 8 out of 10. Beautifully made. What else can I say about this show? Another complaint I had about this first season is that the infected is barely focused on after episode 5. For example, there's that giant herd in that episode, and then after that, it doesn't seem to be nowhere near as that many, and I thought it was odd because ain't 20 years in the zombie apocalypse. But other than that, this season was very entertaining to say the least. Season 2 is going to be real interesting, and while I do know the story of the second video game, I won't spoil it for those who haven't played it. Let's just say it's going to be some major ramifications next season. And that is my review of the very first season of The Last of Us. Alright, leave your comments down below in the section, and let me know what you think about this first season. Okay, this is Slim Guy 172 saying, peace out.